And I have with me here its founding consultant, Mr. Zaid Hamid. Zaid, thank you very much for joining us. Now, it's strange. I mean, we've thought that after 9/11, we've established this relationship on totally different grounds. New foundations. The Americans have been at pains to remind the Pakistanis on every occasion that this time it's going to be different. And now it seems we're back to square one. Why do you think the U.S. is doing this to Pakistan and to President Musharraf, their ally, right now? I mean, why now?
You see, it's very interesting what is happening, Ahmed. You have to understand what is happening. You need to understand three perspectives. Whatever is happening in the United States, whatever is happening in the two wars that U.S. have launched post 9/11, and whatever is happening in Pakistan. American administration, particularly President Bush, are in a state of panic now. I mean, politically, they are dead people. They are dead within the Muslim world. They are losing two wars. They have destroyed their economy. They have destroyed their army. And would you believe it? Now, the circumstances and the environments at home in the mainland United States have become so severe that the think tanks and the serious policy research groups are discussing the possibility of reinduction of draft, which means induction of U.S. citizens into war, forcefully inducting them for war, because the U.S. Army has been stretched beyond limits. The army is almost destroyed. They don't have troops now to wage this further war. The new troop surge that they have in Iraq has completely failed. They are also talking of imposing martial law in the United States. Would you believe this?
Yes, some extreme elements.
Yes, because the reason they are saying this is that now that the Muslim world has become so angry because of these wars, the possibility of another 9/11 on the US mainland is very real. The wars are so expensive that they are spending almost $5 billion per month on these two wars. And for every insurgent that they kill, the American troops fire 250,000 bullets. And this is the investment they are making in these wars. 250,000 bullets they fire to get one insurgent. Imagine.
And why is this reflecting on us?
So this is what I'm coming to it now. So at home, their political rating is on absolutely rock bottom. They have destroyed their economy completely. They have destroyed, as we said, destroyed their military, and the reaction within the U.S. population is intense. Coming to the wars they are handling, the two wars are practically lost wars. They know it now. It's only a matter of time when the U.S. people and the population and the Congress are going to say, withdraw the troops from there. They have lost it. They have blundered into the Muslim world, the invaded Muslim world, tried to colonize it, lost it, big time. And third, coming to President Musharraf. Americans and the world always thought, American people I mean, and the world always thought that President Musharraf is probably the biggest American ally. But the neocons and the hardliners and the Zionists, Christian Zionists within the American administration, they think that President Musharraf has used this relationship to strengthen himself in Pakistan, and basically what he has done so far is destroyed the US foreign policy in the 21st century. It's a big statement to make, and I'm going to come to it now. You see, this is the very interesting part, because the world sees Musharraf as to be the closest ally. But the Christian Zionists don't see it like this. You see, what President Musharraf has done
But you agree personally that he is their ally.
You see, he is ally on a certain issue. But that is correct. But where it comes to Pakistan's other relationship, let me explain to those.
I mean, his biggest concern is Pakistan's interest, definitely.
Well, there could be many factors to it. But let's see what are the points which are agitating the Americans. Number one, he has not delivered them Osama or Zawahiri. Because if he could deliver them those, that would have been given some justification to the Bush administration as face saver. That has not come. And they feel that as long as these two people are alive, and as long as the ideology is alive, they are going to hit America. And another 9/11 would mean doom of the American doom of the American government.
It would prove the failure of the Bush administration.
I mean, they're finished. They're anyway finished. And right now, the nightmare for them is that another 9/11 should not happen, and they want to get these two people. President Musharraf has not delivered them those. Then, the entire U.S. strategy in the 21st century hinged on few strategic moves which they wanted President Musharraf to make. For example, he did not hand it over Dr. Qadir Khan to them. He did not give them the nuclear program or whatever Pakistan knew about the North Korean nuclear potential. He did not recognize Israel. He did not send troops to Iraq. He did not broke off his relationship with Iran. And he kept on developing Pakistan's nuclear and missile capability. Now, these things are what, under the surface of, on the surface there was war on terror going on, where President Musharraf claimed that he was supporting the Americans. And it's a very debatable way, the way he did it. Even within the Muslim world, he did not get any recognition for that. Within the country, people are angry with him for the way he did. But under that, like if Pakistan had sent forces to Iraq, the US casualties would have reduced in Iraq, obviously. Other Muslim countries would have also sent forces. It was Pakistan which refused, and then the Turkey and the Bangladesh and all Sunni countries refused as well.
Zaid, I'm just interrupting you here. You can continue with this point. But the 5 things that you mentioned, the 5 things that supposedly President Musharraf did not deliver, very interesting, very fascinating, because all of those 5 actually fall within the Pakistani national interest. Don't the Americans understand that President Musharraf's first concern at all times is going to be actually the Pakistani national interest?
You see, and also to add to that list, Pakistan kept on forging its relationship with China.
Good point, yeah.
So, if you put this list together, I mean, Americans are extremely angry with President Musharraf on these counts. And knowing fully well, and in my analysis is that they are done with him. They want to replace him now. And that is why you hear this, all this clutter about democracy.
And that's also a very arrogant notion, by the way, to replace, I mean, just to have, you know, as if, yeah.
You need to understand, a very interesting point is that right now, despite the fact that President Musharraf has done so much for the Americans in terms of war on terror, his own personal religious and moral credentials are zero within the country. People do not appreciate his relationship. And the reason why this is happening is that he did it bypassing the national parliament. He did it without having a national security policy on terrorism, without having an anti-terror policy, without having an Afghan policy. So now what is happening is that Pakistan, and particularly President Musharraf, is finding himself between a hard place and a rock. Because on one hand, people of Pakistan are very angry with him on this. On the other hand, Americans are totally angry because he has destroyed the US foreign policy in ways which probably, whether he meant it or he didn't mean it, but the steps that he took, the points that I mentioned earlier, have completely destroyed the neocon.
But as a Pakistani, Zaid, those 5 points, I mean, you make a very valid point that within the country people are angry with President Musharraf because of that relationship with the Americans. But on the other hand, the Americans have their own grievances on the 5 points or 6 points that you mentioned, very fascinating. But all of those 6 points, the reason why President Musharraf, I mean, this is a question actually. Why did President Musharraf pursue those 5 or 6 points? I mean,
you see, those who support President Musharraf say he did it in the national interest, but those who criticize him say he did it for his own survival. See, but whether he did it for his own survival or national interest, it is immaterial in my point of view. What matters is it damaged US foreign policy. It destroyed President Bush. It destroyed the neocon Zionist agenda against. See, it's not just the Muslim world.
Were the Americans taking President Musharraf, for the Pakistani president, for granted? I mean, how do you think the American policymakers were thinking that they can secure all their objectives?
See, Americans are historically very stupid people. You see their history. I mean, the last 200 years, they have waged 200 wars.
I hope you mean in terms of policy and all that.
In terms of policy, of course. In terms of the foreign policy, of course. Americans, I mean, as a human being, they could be very fine people amongst them. But the US foreign policy has been very stupid throughout. Look what they did to themselves in Vietnam. Look at what they're doing themselves to Iraq. This is not sign of wisdom. This is sign of policies based on myopia, policies based on lack of vision, lack of foresight. And they probably assumed if they can coerce Pakistan into a war on terror relationship, it can be extended into a war against China, it can be extended into war against Iran, it can be extended into war controlling the Middle East, it can be extended into complete global dominance.
Okay, they miscalculated. But let's talk about the options for Pakistan, because Pakistan now, over the past 3-4 days, we've taken a tough